Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. The Game Week 1 deadline is only a couple of days away now, and in today's video you're going to get a complete Game Week 1 guide answering all of your key questions ahead of the Game Week 1 deadline. Do you enjoy today's video? Please do smash that like button, and if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe as well. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So guys, we have got a lot to cover today, and in all honesty, these are my favourite videos to make and to record. So much goes into the research for them, creating the graphics, thinking of what you might want answered as well. So if you do appreciate the effort and you find any use in today's video, I'm going to just ask you to do one thing. It's to please subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to push for 160,000 subscribers before the Game Week 1 deadline, and I can only do that with your support. So if you get any use today, please do consider subscribing. But we have got so much to cover. I will never apologize. These videos will end up being longer than your normal one because I'm going to hopefully answer all of the questions that you need ahead of Game Week 1. If there's anything I've missed, please leave me a comment down below and I'll try to answer as many as possible. If you are short on time and you can't afford to sit with me and go on the journey of this video, then there will be timestamps or chapters down below. So if you just navigate down below, you can skip to the section that you want. I always spend an extra bit of time doing that in all of my videos because I know not everyone is blessed with having lots of time, and I'd rather you get the information that you need. With all of that being said, let's get into it today. I've spent a lot of time in pre-season talking about the best cheap assets, and today we will cover that once again. But something I've probably not given enough discussion around is the expensive assets. We've talked about no Salah versus Salah and Haaland, and by the way, I did a live stream yesterday, so after this, feel free to check out that live stream. I talk about Salah versus no Salah. But I've not really talked about what I would call the semi-premiums too much. So what I've tried to do here is talk about who are my top 8 semi-premiums. And the price that I've given for a semi-premium is basically below Saka. So Saka's not involved here. And then 7.5 and above. And actually, there are tons here. I really struggled to narrow this down to 8 because players that aren't even on this list, I'm probably going to miss some here. You've got the likes of Chris Wood, I think is fantastic. Whisper if he gets a move. You've got Ekitike in the forwards. In the midfield, you've got Guiu and Mbeumo aren't on this list. Again, I'm sure I'm missing some players. Let me just navigate over here to have a look. I think those are most of the assets. In fact, yeah, I think there's it. So you're missing a couple of the forwards in there, and you're missing a couple of the midfielders. But for me, these are the top 8. So what I've done is I've got their non-penalty XG per 90 from last season. I've got their expected assist per 90 from last season, the amount of DEFCON points that they would have achieved last season, the fixture difficulty ranking courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub from Game Weeks 1 to 6, and I've also got my own Raptor ranking. I'm trying to not sit on the fence as much as possible in these videos, so I've ranked these premiums according to everything. Fixtures, price, reliability, data, eye test, all of it into one in terms of how I rate these semi-premiums. So I think the best player between 7.5 and let's say 9 million is Ollie Watkins for me. There are a few reasons for this. Firstly, the fixtures are unbelievable. Out of all of the players on this list, I think Aston Villa and Watkins have the best fixtures. So that's really nice immediately. In the opening 6, there isn't really a single game I wouldn't want to have Ollie Watkins for. In pre-season, he's been unbelievable. 5 goals in 5 games. His ownership isn't that high. And Ollie Watkins actually commented, this is one of the only pre-seasons across the last 3 or 4 years that he has had a full pre-season. No international games to worry about, no injuries, no random rotation with other forwards. There's no one really. They've just signed Gessend, but he feels like and looks like the main man at Aston Villa. Now, I don't know if he's going to get 90 minutes every single game. Again, Gessend could take minutes off him. Marlon could take minutes off him. They might even try and go out and get another forward in the market on loan. But it does very much feel like Watkins is first choice. It also looks like, obviously, Man United have got Sesko. It looks like Newcastle are looking at other players. I think Watkins does stay at Villa. So when you put that all together, and then when you also say he has the best non-penalty XG per 90 on this entire list as well, I just think he's that guy. And I also love the price point in the forward positions, right? There are loads of midfielders we want, but Watkins is just perfect because Gyökeres is another player that's not on this list, for example. If Watkins doesn't work out, move to Gyökeres, move to Ekitike, move to Jared Bowen, move to Mateta, move to João Pedro. Watkins is at a price where there aren't too many above him that you'd want, other than obviously if Isak gets the move and also Erling Haaland. But then below him, you can always downgrade to free up some funds. So I think he's a really nice starting point. I think I will be having Ollie Watkins in my Game Week 1 draft. I'd be very surprised if he leaves it. And then in 2 and 3, very close are Bruno and Florian Wirtz. I think for me, these 3 are the standouts. So if you want me to really, again, not sit on the fence and say, who are the 3 that I'd try to fit in? It is Watkins, Bruno, and Wirtz for me. And as a result, I am not going to sacrifice those 3, I don't think. You're going to see my team selection video tomorrow, so make sure to subscribe for the team selection video. But I think Wirtz, Bruno, and Watkins are non-negotiables for me. I just think they offer really nice value. I love their price points. And yes, they are incredibly expensive, but those are the three that I will get massive FOMO about if I don't have them in. I don't want to say that Bruno Fernandes is essentially Florian Wirtz with DEFCON, because I do think that Florian Wirtz is playing in a significantly better attack. And I think that Liverpool score a ton more goals. Florian Wirtz is also on set pieces like Bruno as well. But Bruno is, like, if you look at the underlying numbers, and again, it's going to be very different. Wirtz will play a different role for Liverpool. He's obviously playing in a different league as well. So maybe his numbers will improve. But he's got extremely similar underlying numbers to Bruno. But DEFCON-wise, like, Wirtz is not going to be getting many DEFCON, if any, defensive contribution points. If he does, it will be minimal. And he's not on penalties. So what you get with Bruno is probably similar-ish underlying numbers. Again, you might say that Wirtz for Liverpool put up crazy numbers. That's okay. But similar-ish numbers, plus penalties, plus defensive contribution points. So for me, I do struggle to see how you would think that the Wirtz is a better asset than Bruno, unless two things. You think that the fixtures are good enough that they would outweigh that sort of improvement in asset. And I do think that Liverpool's fixtures are slightly better. And or, again, you just think Liverpool are such a better attack and Wirtz is playing in such a more well-established team that, again, you will see a natural uptick in his numbers in comparison to Bruno. But for me, Bruno just has more routes to points. He's better for baseline bonus. I can't say he's better. He's very good for baseline bonus. Like I said, last season, he would have picked up 22 defensive contribution points. I just think he's very established in the Prem, where you know what you're going to get from him. So I do think Bruno is better than Florian Wirtz, but I don't want to upset Liverpool fans. Lots of people think Bruno is terrible, and that's absolutely fine. On Florian Wirtz, I think he could make a mockery of his 8.5 million price tag. Again, playing in such a great attack. If he continues taking set pieces, he's just picking up such wonderful positions. Even in the Community Shield, he was just picking up these little pockets in between the sort of midfield of the opposition and the defence. And he's playing with fantastic players like Ekitike, GAKPO and Salah. You add a possible Isak transfer in there. The players that he is providing, I mean, Florian Wirtz probably is going to be in the top 3 this season for assists across in the Premier League. It'll probably be him, maybe Bruno, maybe Bukayo Saka, maybe Salah himself. But he will get a ton of assists. It's about whether he can have goals alongside that, and about whether, without penalties and without defensive contributions, he can keep up with the likes of Bruno. But I do think that the three of them, for me, are very, very likely to be in my draft. So outside of that, who else? Cody GAKPO. I've got a really good feeling about Cody GAKPO. Do you remember Luis Diaz at the start of last season? I think he had 50 points in the opening 5 weeks, and he was the top scoring player. Cody GAKPO's minutes in the short term look incredibly, incredibly good. There's no one that can really play out on that left at the moment. Maybe Ekitike, if Isak joins, could be pushed out there. But Ekitike is not a better left winger or a left forward than GAKPO. He's looked so good in pre-season. He's got the most attacking returns of any Liverpool player. I think it's 4 goals, 1 assist, if I'm correct. I just think GAKPO's minutes look good. He's playing again in a fantastic attack. He might even be worth the 1 million saving on Florian Wirtz. I do think it's quite close. But I just think if you can afford that extra million, I think Wirtz's minutes will be slightly more secure. Again, set pieces. And because of where he's playing, he's just a little bit more central. And I think he'll be involved in a lot of what happens. So I think I've just about favouring Florian Wirtz. But take into account the million that you save, GAKPO is going so under the radar. He's still only 6.1%. I really do like him. I've even eyed up Wirtz, Salah and GAKPO triple Liverpool attack. But then I'm like, what if Frimpong looks really good? Because he's a player that could look good. Do I want to go for triple Liverpool attack right from the off when their opening 3 aren't great? So I think for me, if you go for Salah, you then go for one of Wirtz or GAKPO, but I like both. I think Jean-Philippe Mateta is incredibly, incredibly underrated as well. We saw in the Community Shield, he took 2 penalties, scored both of them. Eze missed a penalty. You would have to imagine then that Mateta is first choice penalty taker. The only concern I have with Mateta, not the best opening 3 fixtures. I do still think he will share penalties with Eze. This is assuming Eze doesn't leave, by the way. Linked to Spurs, linked to Arsenal as well. And also, as we'll discuss a bit later in the video, Crystal Palace have Europa Conference League qualifiers in between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. We'll discuss that in a bit more detail later, but it means that they have a lot of games at the start of the season. So I just wonder, like, could you go without Mateta at the start and then move to him? But in terms of like a season keeper, the man's going to do very, very well, I would imagine, again. You've then got 2 other forwards in and around that price, Jarrod Bowen and João Pedro. Like, these are my 3 favourite forwards around that 7.58 price, are Mateta, Bowen, João Pedro. You could fully justify picking any of them ahead of the others. Jarrod Bowen's opening fixture is fantastic, so good for minutes, very, very reliable. But João Pedro, I think, does have a higher ceiling. If you said one of Mateta, Bowen or João Pedro scored 25 goals this season, I would say the only one with a ceiling that high for me personally is João Pedro. I think he has a higher ceiling than the other two. But I also feel like he's got a lower floor in the sense that his minutes could be reduced if Delap starts to play really well. He doesn't appear to be getting anywhere close to 90 minutes in pre-season. He'll probably continue getting early subs. He's not on penalties. Remember, a lot of his goals for Brighton did come from penalties. With Palmer being on pens, that is a little bit of a reduction as well. So I think João Pedro is great, but no penalties and a reduction in minutes means that I just don't see João Pedro. Like, I would rather try and squeeze in Wirtz, Bruno, Watkins at the expense of João Pedro than having to drop one of those top three and then fit João Pedro in, if that makes sense. I think one of the most underrated players probably, again, in the attack is Marmoush. I know he's up at 13%, but in engaged managers' teams, I'm not seeing much of Marmoush. Since he joined Man City, only Gvardiol has had more minutes than Marmoush. The underlying data is really strong. He does take some set pieces himself. You'll see in a second, I mean, I'm wearing the AC Milan kit. I do really like Reijnders, and I think Reijnders could be insane value at 5.5. So it's like, do you pay an extra 3 million for Marmoush if you've already got Reijnders or you think he could be a decent option? That's the only thing that slightly put me off. Again, just to cover some of the other options then, Gyökeres. I think Gyökeres could arguably be the best forward in FPL this season, but I don't know that I want to bank on that from the off. Leeds in Game Week 2 is fantastic, but outside of that, I don't think the opening five are that sensational. We don't know how many minutes he'll get. Does he start every game? I think so, but Havertz could start one or two. Maybe Havertz drops into midfield. Is he going to get 90 on a regular basis? I don't think so, because again, unless Havertz is now preferred as a midfielder, we know that Arteta trusts him. He's got minutes in pre-season, so that's a concern. We also don't know that Gyökeres is on penalties. It could be Saka. And for that reason, both of them have a slight reduction for me in terms of how much I'd want them, because I like to have penalties confirmed. So Gyökeres, for that reason, doesn't quite make the top 8. But if you want to start and risk it, he could, again, even make a mockery of his 9 million price. He could be that good. He's clearly got a very high ceiling. Ekitike is another player. If Isak doesn't move, or it takes a while, you're probably going to get 3 starts out of 3 in the first, before the first international break from Ekitike. So he could be a great value pick at 8.5. And again, lots of other good 7.5 million forwards as well. On Cunha and Mbeumo, I'm a Man United fan, so we're getting a lot of questions around Cunha or Mbeumo. I think the better FPL asset this season will probably be Matheus Cunha. I just think he's going to be better for him in terms of open play goals and assists. But Mbeumo is taking a lot of in-swinging set pieces. At the moment, it's Bruno and Mbeumo that are sharing them. So I do think that you're probably going to get slightly more sort of set piece creativity from Mbeumo than you would from a Matheus Cunha. But for me, if you're not going for Bruno, I think it's probably Cunha that I would take a punt on. I've probably missed someone in and around those prices. Yeah, I think those are the key ones for me. Like I said, non-negotiables are probably Watkins and Bruno, and I'd also like Florian Wirtz or GAKPO. And as a result, I'm finding it very difficult to squeeze any of those others in. Let me know, between the price of 7.5 and 9, how many do you have and which players do you have? So guys, with only a couple of days away from the Game Week 1 deadline, it is absolutely essential that we get those teams locked in and pick the best players possible. So I would absolutely be making the most of Fantasy Football Hub during this time. You can still get a free team rating. Even if you don't use it, it's just good to sort of sense check yourself and have another way to just assess how your team's getting on. I'll show you how simple it is. All you have to do is just upload. I'll just upload a random screenshot of a team here. It's just done in seconds. All you would then do on the free version, it might look slightly different, but you'd save the plan. You can then see if I optimize that. This team is rated at 96%. This is actually like a 4-5-1 draft. This isn't what I'm rocking right now. This is just an example. Obviously, if you then sign up for 50% off using the link in the description, you can navigate through the future weeks. But there is so much more to that than just the free team rating, right? You've got Opta statistics as well. So if you want to look at defensive contribution points, I'm still getting loads of questions about where to find them. You can look home, you can look away, you can look against different opposition strength. Who would have picked up the most DEFCON points against those more difficult teams? Like, you can look at so much. I've got my own custom table that I built as well for these videos, which has things like non-pen XG, it has big chances created. There's just so much on the site. There's more than that as well. Obviously, you've got player points projections too. You've got the fixture analyzer where you can change it by game week. I just think that if you want to do it well in FPL, you need as many tools as possible to try and help you. I am on Fantasy Football Hub on a daily basis and have been now for over 4 seasons. So they've really supported my channel, but I also can say from the bottom of my heart, I do recommend the website. I think it works incredibly well, and I think it will improve the way you play FPL. So first thing, get a free team rating. That'll be the first link in the description. Nice and easy to do. And then if you do want to check out the rest of the website, there'll be a link down below to 50% off. Give it a check out and let me know what you think. Well, I did say this would be a longer video. That first section I did not expect to take 12 to 13 minutes, but let's now move on to the best cheap midfielders, and I'll try to keep this a bit shorter because I've talked a lot about them. For me, there are 4 standout 5.5 million midfielders. There are others, of course, and there are 4 standout 5 million midfielders. At 5.5, I think it's Andersen, Reijnders, Arias, or Wilson. And then at 5 million, I like Xhaka, Dewsbury Hall, Sarr, and Baleba. For me, at 5.5, I'm choosing between Andersen and Reijnders. Andersen will get you, look how many DEFCON points he got last season. And by the way, for the first 10 games, his minutes weren't particularly good. As soon as his minutes shot up, his success rate in terms of picking up those 2 defensive contribution points was obscenely high. It was crazy. So 36 last season. It could even be higher this season. We know that Nottingham Forest have excellent opening fixtures. He had 6 assists last season as well. Could be taking more set pieces. Like, Andersen is the real deal at 5.5 million, and he'll tick along really nicely. I do not think he has the same ceiling, though, as Reijnders. Again, I'm wearing the AC Milan kit. Every time I watch Reijnders play football, he is sensational. And he is not a deep-lying player, right? He's not going to play as a number 6. He is like an 8 or sometimes an advanced 8, borderline a number 10. I do think that Rodri being out slightly increases the chance that he has to do a bit more defensive work, but it's just not the sort of player that he is. If you watch the highlights from him playing for AC Milan, or even the brace that he scored for Man City against Palermo, this is a man that could have 10, 15 goals in a season, potentially even more than that. I genuinely think he could be one of the top scoring, in terms of goals, midfielders in the Premier League. He really does remind me of Gundogan. He's that very sort of player, same sort of player, and we know for a fact that Gundogan in a Pep system at points has been absolutely unstoppable in FPL. Reijnders, for me, has much higher risk in terms of minutes and output, because we just don't know. We know from Andersen what he can do in the Premier League, but I also think it could be worth the risk. So I think for me, they are the 2 standouts. If you want a safe, steady Eddie that will tick along that you can start every single week, I would go for Andersen. If you want to chase the upside and go for a player who could go absolutely nuclear this season if he gets the minutes, and I think he can, his fitness is very, very good, then I think Reijnders could be the one. At the moment, I am just about leaning towards Reijnders because that's the way I play FPL. Like, some people will get better ranks than me. I finished 12.7k last year. The last 4 years in a row, I haven't finished outside the top 35k. There you go. My ranks are directly above my head. I get a lot of questions about that. They're not perfect, exceptional ranks, but I like having fun in FPL, chasing the upside and picking players that I like watching. And I just know I'll have more fun watching Reijnders than I will Andersen. So that's the thing that's making me lean there. I do think Arias and Wilson offer great value as well, though. Arias should take all set pieces for Wolves. He could be on penalties, and he's just got a bit of flair about him. Again, a very exciting pick. And Wilson has got, like, I think 5 goals in pre-season. He's got like the 2nd or 3rd most attacking returns of any player in the Premier League in pre-season. His minutes have looked good. I see no reason why he wouldn't start the season. And look at his data last year. When he got minutes last year, this is a guy that is probably going to outperform that 5.5 price tag. It's just about how good will his minutes be once the season gets underway. But for me, all 4 of those are excellent options. At 5 million, the standout for me is Dewsbury Hall. I don't think Grealish signing will affect Dewsbury Hall's minutes. I just think he might drop into a slightly deeper role. I think Dewsbury Hall has been brought in to play alongside another player in the pivot. He'll be sort of like an advanced 6 or an 8 in that team, but he will sit there as part of the defensive midfield duo on quite a few occasions, especially when he's doing defensive work. That should increase his DEFCON points, but he should also still be on a lot of set pieces, and we know he can strike a ball. So I still feel like he'll get goals and assists, maybe some DEFCON points too. At 5 million, he does seem like the standout, but again, I don't think he's got the high ceiling. If you want to chase the high ceiling, it is probably Sarr of Spurs, who has been starting a lot in pre-season as an advanced 8 or a number 10. Obviously, Maddison picks up the ACL injury. There is a chance he starts the season. I mean, Spurs play on Wednesday evening against PSG, so keep an eye on that. If he starts as the 10 again, he's going to look great. You can see his goal threat last season was actually pretty decent. So I think Sarr is very similar to Reijnders in the sense that there's risk associated with it, but of the 5 millions, he's probably got the highest ceiling. I think I still prefer Dewsbury Hall, though, because I think due to him being on set pieces, and he could still play as the 10, I just think he'll also tick along really nicely. Obviously, you've got Baleba and Xhaka if you want to chase sort of more defensive contribution points and go for a slightly safer pick in terms of minutes. So for me, to round up the cheap midfielders, let me pick my top 3. My top 3 would be Andersen, Reijnders, and Dewsbury Hall, if you need 3 midfielders. If I was to order them, I would go probably Reijnders, Andersen, Dewsbury Hall. But again, I probably think if I'm advising you sensibly, logically, objectively as a content creator, Andersen is probably a better pick than Reijnders, but I think I'm going to try and chase the upside. At least that's how I feel right now in my heart. I want to try and have a bit more fun if I can. This is a game at the end of the day. We're supposed to have fun with it. And I think Reijnders would excite me every week. And listen, if he gets dropped and he gets benched, then we can deal with that as and when, and we can move off there. I think like Reijnders to Arias around game week 3 or 4 could be popular if Reijnders' minutes don't look great and maybe Arias does get a penalty and he takes it, for example. Let me know how you feel on the best cheap mids. Obviously, there'll be midfielders that I've not discussed here, but for me, yeah, top 2, Andersen, Reijnders. If you need to drop to 5, probably Dewsbury Hall. So in that previous section, we were speaking a little bit about sort of defensive contributions versus attacking threat. And when we're looking at the 4.5 million defenders, I kind of feel the same as well. You need to think about what you want to do in FPL. How do you want to approach the game? Do you want to chase fun and upside? Go for the attacking defenders. Do you want to play optimally? Because if you plug your team into any algorithm or model, they will tell you to chase the defensive contribution points because they're more reliable. And across the season, you'll probably get more points from that. It really depends what you're looking for. And also, when we're looking at the best 4.5 million defenders, you need to think about rotations in your team. I'll give you some examples. Diouf and Guiu rotate quite nicely. So if you pick Diouf, you then need to think, well, who's going to rotate nicely with Diouf? Another good example is actually Spurs and Crystal Palace. So if you're like, I think Van de Ven's the best 4.5 defender, I'd probably go out there and pick Richards because he rotates really nicely in with him. So I think you need to think about the way you want to play, think about how you want to approach the cheap defenders and cheap midfielders, and then also look at rotations. Once you've done all of that, let's have a bit of a chat about it. So in terms of if you're chasing attacking threat, there are definitely 3 defenders that stand out to me, which is Diouf, Guiu, and GAKPO, probably in that order. Diouf just looks so attacking in pre-season. I love the Game Week 1 fixture, and I don't expect West Ham to keep many clean sheets, but he had 9 attacking returns last season for Slavia Prague in the league. This is a guy that knows how to find the back of the net and has a beautiful left foot. In his most recent pre-season game, not the most recent, the one before that against Bournemouth, he could have had 2 assists quite easily, picked up the 1. He was just whipping in some beautiful crosses. And Guiu is playing a very similar role to Diouf on the left. I think the 2 of those, not only do they rotate really well, but there's just a lot of upside with them. Like, it's fun again. I think Diouf's minutes will be more secure than Guiu's, and so for that reason, I'd probably say Diouf is a slightly better asset. And GAKPO scored in their most recent game for Brighton, right? So this guy, again, knows how to find the back of the net. He's got a slight rotation risk with Kadioglu. We don't know that he's fully nailed. And I just think that Brighton's opening fixtures after those first 2 aren't fantastic. So I just think for that reason, I've got him in 3rd, but he is also a really nice asset. But any of those 3, fantastic. If you're chasing Defcon, Andersen's going to be the GOAT. Andersen this season, he probably is, again, objectively, probably is the best 4.5 defender. I just like Diouf a lot. But Andersen for Defcon potential is going to be so good. He's that sort of defender. And also, he's got a beautiful pass on him. Like, I think it was a couple of seasons ago for Crystal Palace. He could have picked up like 5, 6, 7 assists. He was just spraying passes for fun. And he's not bad in the air. So I think you'll get a few attacking returns. You'll get really good defensive contribution points. And also, Fulham are not a bad defence. So I really like Andersen. For me, he's the one to go for if you want someone that will tick along with points. Agbadou, when he came into the team, Agbadou was so good for defensive contributions. If he gets a full season under his belt, and Wolves aren't too bad defensively, he will probably rival Andersen for defensive contributions. I just think that Fulham are a better team than Wolves, so I would just lean Andersen for that reason. And then again, Richards, I think he'll be really good for defensive contributions. The issue with Richards is he's not got the best injury record, so as long as he can stay fit, Richards is a nice shout too. Then when we're looking at if there's anyone that has good fixtures and can be permanently played. So a lot of these, like, you wouldn't want to play Agbadou every week. You want to play Guiu every week, Diouf. Andersen, to some extent, you could. But I think Van de Ven and Konsa, the reason a lot of people have Van de Ven and Konsa is it feels like pretty much every week you can play them because they've got a nice set of opening 8 fixtures. And they're playing for good defences in Van de Ven and Konsa. And I know you say Spurs are good defence. Thomas Frank's just so good. I really rate him that highly. I guarantee that he improves the Spurs defence quite considerably this year. And Aston Villa, they don't keep that many clean sheets for some reason, but their XGC is always pretty decent. So I think Van de Ven and Konsa make a lot of sense, right? The issue is that Konsa last season was terrible for defensive contributions. He only picked up DC points in 3 games. So you're not going to get many from Konsa. On Van de Ven, he also wasn't very good, but the Brentford defenders last season were good. So if Spurs defend in a very similar way to what we've seen Brentford do under Thomas Frank, maybe Van de Ven's defensive contributions will shoot up. I do think if you're looking for a player that you can pretty much play every week, Van de Ven is probably the best. I've chucked Ballard in there as the 3rd. Sunderland's opening fixtures are just so good. And the thing is with a defender from a newly promoted team, they are going to defend so much that it feels almost guaranteed, like most weeks they'll pick up defensive contribution points. The issue is, if they concede lots of goals, it will just cancel itself out. So if Sunderland concede 4 goals against West Ham and Ballard gets the 2 DC points, then it's the same, right? It's just leveled itself out. So as a result, yeah, I'd be looking at the Van de Ven and Concert if you're going down that route. So if I'm going to rank these overall, I do think the 2 standouts for me are Diouf and Andersen. Attacking threat Diouf, steady Eddie, tick along, Defcon, Andersen. Third, I've put Dorgu in, but you could argue for Van de Ven. I could absolutely understand that. So let's say Diouf, Andersen, Dorgu / Van de Ven for third. I'd love to know where you're sitting right now with the 4.5 million defenders. In my own team, I think I'm going to lock in Diouf because I want some fun. I am then choosing between Dorgu and Andersen for that second spot. I'm probably leaning Dorgu now because he rotates better with Diouf. But as I said, I think Andersen's a slightly better asset. So I'm going back and forth in my mind on that. And yeah, let me know which 4.5s you've got. I also thought it'd be worth discussing just who are the cheapest players that you can own in each position. Like, we are really trying to get the best cheap players we can on our bench that might get minutes if we need them and can just sit there on our bench. Just like sometimes, especially if you're trying to get the best 11 out, you just need those absolute budget gems. There aren't tons of budget gems, I'll be entirely honest. There are no players here that stand out as being game breakers. In goal, it is Dubravka. He is apparently struggling with a small injury. He's flagged in the official FPL site. It's still worth picking him, I think, because there just isn't anyone else that I think is a particularly viable asset. Like, Darlow would have been good, but Perry has started their most recent preseason game. Perry has been brought in to be number 1 choice. I don't see another 4 million goalkeeper that has a good chance of getting minutes. Maybe Kinski if Vicario drops a couple of stinkers, but I think Dubravka is the one to go for, sadly. There's just not many other options. In terms of the defenders, we do have quite a few options in there. I think the best are going to be from Leeds and Burnley, and the reason for that is I just think these newly promoted teams are going to just get so many defensive contribution points because they have to defend so much. And again, it might cancel itself out, but I don't see another 4 million defenders that play for brilliant defences that are worth going for. Ones that aren't on this list, you've got more attacking defenders, like Goodmanson and the left wing back for Burnley, but really, how many attacking returns are you expecting for defenders playing for Leeds and Burnley? Not that many. I think at that stage, you probably just go for the defensive contribution points, which is why I've got the centre-backs on here. The other option is you go for someone like Herver or Hoover from Wolves. He's been playing a sort of a wing-back in pre-season, but lots of Wolves fans are saying that he shouldn't be anywhere near the 11. He's not good enough. I just don't know about his minutes in the long term. There's probably someone else. I'm like some of the Bournemouth defenders that could get good minutes for 4 million at the moment, but we just don't know about that long term. I think for me, you're looking at a Leeds or a Burnley 4 million. If you actually look at the XGC last season, depending what site you look at, Leeds are arguably as good as, if not slightly better than Burnley defensively. The difference between Leeds and Burnley last season was actually just Meslier and Trafford. Like last season, Meslier was not very good in the Championship. Trafford was excellent. I think if you had equally level goalkeepers, they probably conceded an equal number of goals. So I think actually Leeds are probably being slightly underrated as a team and as a defence in comparison to Burnley. I think what it comes down to is what weeks do you need a defender? For me, in my current team, I kind of need a defender in Game Week 2. Like Spurs play against Man City, West Ham play against Chelsea, United play against Fulham away. A lot of the other defenders I've chosen don't have a good fixture in 2. So having Esteve of Burnley against Sunderland at home in Game Week 2 is quite helpful. If I didn't need a defender in Game Week 2, I think I would go for Bijol or Rodon. And I've put Bijol as number 1. I think he'll be absolutely monstrous for Defcon. And also on top of that, I think he'll have some decent attacking threat. The reason that Bijol is red flagged, though, he's carried over his suspension into the Premier League, which means he's suspended for Game Week 1. So again, if you don't need a player in Game Week 1, I would be very tempted to go for Bijol. I think he's being slightly underrated because he's not available. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not a newly promoted teams expert. I didn't watch a ton of Championship football, so sorry if I've misspoken, but that's the general vibe I'm getting. I'd probably go Bijol, Rodon, or Esteve. In terms of midfielders, I've just tried to fill up the graphic a bit, but it's King. King has been getting very good minutes for Fulham in pre-season. I cannot promise or confirm to you that he will start in Game Week 1 and beyond, but he definitely has the best chance at 4.5 million of getting good minutes. I think it is absolutely categorically worth finding 0.5 million and going for one of the 5 million mids that we just spoke about. It's absolutely worth doing that for me. But if you genuinely can't, I would go for King. 2 other mids that have been getting okay minutes in pre-season are Potts of West Ham and Traore of Bournemouth. I don't think that either of these start at all. And if they do, they're not going to get as good minutes, I don't think, as King anyway. So there are a couple of 4.5 mids, but really it's King that we're looking at. In terms of the forwards, I can only see 2. It's either Guiu or Krupi Jr. In terms of Game Week 1, Krupi Jr. has a decent chance of starting, But I feel like in the long term, the better 4.5 forward to have probably is Guiu. I will note, though, he's flagged in FPL, and I would be very surprised if he gets decent or even any minutes in Game Week 1. So again, if you need a player for some reason that starts Game Week 1 or gets good minutes, I think Creepy Jr. is slightly more likely to do so, but I can't make any promises again. For me, I think if I was going for a 4.5 forward, it would be Guiu. 4.5 mid, King. 4 million defender, either a Leeds or Burnley one. In all honesty, it's worth finding the extra 0.5 in a lot of these positions if you can, but obviously we can't always do that. So hopefully that's helpful. I don't see any game breakers in any of these positions, but if you need to go budget, sometimes you have to. So we've discussed some of the players on this list already, but I wanted to discuss some other players, and they kind of all fit under the bracket of my favourite differentials. Like loads of the players I wanted to discuss were under 5%, and I always advocate not picking players just based on ownership, but it just so happens that lots of these players are underrated. So on your screen right now, I've got the top 9 players, because that's what fit on the graphic. The top 9 players that I like that are under 5% at the time of recording. Some of the players we've already discussed. You've got Andersen in there in terms of defence. Again, very, very lowly rated. Dewsbury Hall, Arias, Richards. A lot of these have been discussed, but some of them haven't. The top 2 that I have been saying all season, or pre-season, continue to go under the radar are Ismaila Sarr and Evanilson. And they are both still below 5%. Ismaila Sarr is just such a decent asset. Like at 6.5 million, I still think him and maybe Iliman Ndiaye, they are the best 2 6.5s for me. It's the fixtures that's putting a lot of people off. And then again, in the next section, we're going to discuss that with the European games that they have now around game weeks 1, 2, and 3, it might be enough to put you off. But he's just such a minutes monster. He took his goal incredibly well in the Community Shield, also took his penalty well as well. I just think Sarr's minutes will be great. He always puts up good numbers, and I really rate Crystal Palace. So if you can get over the fact that the opening 3 fixtures aren't perfect, you'll then go into game week 4 with Ismaila Sarr against Sunderland at home. I really rate him. In second, I've got Evanilson. Again, I think this is a Game Week 1 fixture thing. He's facing Liverpool in Game Week 1, so I feel like a lot of people can't put him in for that reason. Like, let's say that Evanilson's Game Weeks 1 and 2 fixtures were switched. If Evanilson had Wolves at home in Game Week 1, I guarantee he'd be over 10%. And I don't know if that should be enough of a reason to put you off. A player will not have a perfect fixture every week. I know it feels far from ideal doing that in Game Week 1, but Evanilson for me is extremely underrated. Someone that I am liking more and more over the last few days, the more research you do and the more you look at it, is actually Georginio Rutter. His minutes last season got better and better throughout the season. He might even be first choice penalty taker alongside Danny Welbeck. He can play as the 10, as the 9, off the right. I basically think he's their João Pedro now. I think he'll play a lot of minutes as the number 10. I think when Welbeck's not available, we might see him play as the 9. But also, he's played off the right quite a few times and done extremely well there. I remember quite vividly last season, can't remember the game, but he cut in off the right and scored a beautiful goal with his left foot. He's just a very, very good player. And the quotes from Wirtz have been incredibly promising in pre-season. So I think Rutter is probably my favourite Brighton player if you're going to own one. And again, a player that's going very, very under the radar at 6 million. I've got Fulkrug in there. Fulkrug's been playing really well in pre-season. He's got a couple of goals, I think 3 goals in 4 or something like that. He's started every game, I believe, playing as the number 9 alongside Jared Bowen. I don't think Fulkrug is a game breaker, but at 6 million, Sunderland in Game Week 1. Now, I've got Fulkrug in my latest draft. Spoiler alert for my team selection video tomorrow. I really, really like Fulkrug at 6 mil. So another player that I would at least consider. And then the only other player on this list that we've not yet discussed is actually Paquetá. Again, also at 6 million. I think his minutes will be extremely good. We still think he is first choice penalty taker when he's on the pitch. And I think his minutes will be pretty secure because they just don't have anyone of that similar profile to Paquetá. So yeah, I think there are really nice options to differentiate so far. Like I'm seeing lots and lots of good players. These are just those under 5%. There are tons more under 10%. I know there might feel like there's a slight template starting to emerge, but you have some seriously good ways to differentiate if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, my top 3, Sarr, Evanilson, Rutter, keep an eye on them. And if you're looking at that price point, consider putting them in. So guys, we've spoken about Crystal Palace players throughout the video. Mateta, Richards, Sarr, Eze, by the way, if he doesn't go to Spurs or Arsenal, or even if he does, by the way, I think he's always a good shout. You've got Munoz and Lacroix, I think are incredibly underrated too. Even people are talking about Adam Wharton, that cheaper midfielder. Like, there are so, even Henderson in goal. Crystal Palace have so many players that I think are really decent shouts. So let's discuss them, because they've just won the Community Shield as well. They put up a really good fight against Liverpool. There's just enough that's putting me off right now. So the opening 3 fixtures are obviously Chelsea, Forest, Villa. 2 of those being away. That doesn't feel ideal as an opening set of 3, but we know Palace are a team that play well away from home, and also, they could absolutely get results against those 3 teams. So the fixtures aren't quite enough to put me off, but they obviously recently had their appeal to decide whether they're going to play in the Europa League or the Europa Conference League. They lost that appeal. So Palace are now in the Europa Conference League this season. A competition, by the way, they could absolutely go and win. What that means, sadly, though, is they have Europa Conference League playoffs in between games 1 and 2 and between games 2 and 3. So what that now means is they've got game week 1 against Chelsea, 4 days later a Europa Conference League game. The draw, I think, hasn't been done at the time of me recording. Then 3 days after that, Forest. 4 days after that, the Europa Conference League. 3 days after that, they've then got Villa. So they have got like 5 games in the space where a lot of people have 3 games. And the thing is, a lot of their players just play every minute. Like Munoz will probably play 90 in all of those and be absolutely fine. Mateta kind of has to play. I think Nketiah's got a small injury at the moment. Mateta will probably play good minutes. Sarr will probably do so as well. I'm not necessarily massively worried about their minutes. But fitness is an issue. Richards, like I said, doesn't have the best fitness record. If he plays all 5 of those, I would be a little bit worried. Also, are their performances going to drop off slightly in the league when they're also worrying about a Europa Conference League tie? It might be that they win the first leg 6-0 and they don't have to worry about the second leg. We don't know, but I just think with those 3 opening fixtures and those 2 games in the middle, there's probably enough to just make me think I don't need to really worry too much about Palace. Now, would I happily pick Munoz, Richards, Sarr, Mateta? Yes, but I probably wouldn't overload on them. Game week 4 onwards, which is after the international break, there's an international break between 3 and 4. Game week 4 onwards, Sunderland at home. It's a great fixture. I'd absolutely love to have one of them there. And I may well look at something like, if I go for a Pedro Porro or Milenkovic, I may look to sell them to someone like a Munoz in game week 4. Or I might pivot away. Let's say Florian Wirtz or Bruno Fernandes are really poor in the opening 3 and I don't want them anymore. I could even downgrade them to Sarr to free up some money. So I will be looking at Palace from game week 4 onwards. But I think as of right now in my current draft, I've got 0 because there's just enough to put me off. But I don't want to scaremonger. They might be absolutely fine assets. They might still get really good minutes and perform at a great level. But I just wanted you to know that information around the Europa Conference League playoffs. So guys, in case we haven't covered enough, I'm just answering a few more of your questions that came in. So Mr. Shazam asked us, is Guiu a good entry to the Liverpool defence at 4.5? So I put this at the end deliberately because we don't know if this will happen, but it does look like Liverpool really want Guiu as a defender this season. He is 4.5 million. He might get more DEFCON points actually potentially for Liverpool. We saw Van Dijk didn't do too badly last season. I just worry, like, is he going to start every game? Assuming Konate does stay, you'd imagine Konate gets some minutes. Does he just go straight into that defence? It might be worth starting with him though, given that again, if he stays at Palace, he's good. He rotates really well with Van de Ven. If he doesn't stay at Palace, you're getting a 4.5 Liverpool defender that should be first choice. It might be worth the risk, but for me, again, I just think there are enough good other 4.5 defenders that I probably won't go there. Shazam also said, thanks for confusing the hell out of me with no Salah stream. Was happy with my draft, but now you've got me thinking. Yes, I'm blaming you, of course. Obviously, this is in jest, but if you've not yet seen my Mo Salah, no Salah stream, I did a live stream yesterday. It's at the top of my channel where I spoke about going without Salah. So if you are tempted yourself, or you just want to understand the justification as to why you might, please go and check out that live stream. We've got another question coming. How, if at all, will Grealish's signing impact Ndiaye's minutes at Everton? I don't think at all. Everton fans are very adamant that Ndiaye is just that good. He'll get pretty much 90 in every game anyway. And so I tend to agree with them. He is just their best player by some distance, I think, especially their best attacker. He should be on penalties, whether it's on the left, as the 10, as the 9, or off the right. I just think he'll start every game. So I wouldn't be worried. And also the rumours about him leaving Everton seem to have died down a bit. Inter Milan apparently were interested. That's not really transpired. So I think Ndiaye is pretty safe. The next question. Could Salah potentially be off penalties if Isak joins? He missed 2 penalties in pre-season. We say this all the time when Salah misses a couple of pens is he still going to be on pens? He always just takes penalties. McAllister is a great penalty taker. Szoboszlai can take them. No one ever takes penalties ahead of Salah. So my inclination is to say no, I don't think so. But if he does miss another one, maybe the next one, if he keeps missing and Isak does join, yes, there is absolutely potential. But I think as of right now, let's work under the assumption that Salah is still on first choice on pens. Next question from Football Mad. Do you prefer Van Dijk or Frimpong? I think I prefer Frimpong now, but I would want to know that Bradley's still out for game week 1. I think if Bradley's still out for game week 1, game week 2, yeah, maybe he might be fit for game week 2, but he won't come in. I think as long as he's not fit and available for game week 1, you probably are confirming you get the first 3 game weeks from Frimpong. And then after the international break, who knows? But if Frimpong does enough in those opening 3, and you'd have to imagine he will because he's brilliant, maybe he just gets that first choice spot. I do think that if you're looking across the first 12 to 15 game weeks and you want just a long-term player you don't have to touch, I would not go for Frimpong because you just can't confirm that once Bradley's fit, he'll get all of the minutes. Van Dijk is so secure. I would go him if you're looking longer term. And then the final question, is Neto a viable option for Chelsea to start the season? Probably one of the players that's going most under the radar, Neto, because I think he's very, very secure for minutes. Really, I think Neto, João Pedro, Palmer, Enzo are all really secure. I think really it's just that one other forward spot in the team, which could go to Gittins, it could go to Esteve. They have a lot of options for that final spot. And I don't think Neto will get 90 mins, but I do think he'll get start. So I don't mind him. But again, when I look at the other options that we've got, do I think he's got a high enough ceiling to justify taking the risk on him when I could go for some of the other cheaper options? So is he an option? Yes. Is he for me? Probably not. I've answered lots of questions today and gone through a lot today, but if there is anything that I've still not yet answered, drop your comment down below and I'll try to answer as many as possible. So guys, there we have it. That is my Game Week Preview Ultimate Game Week 1 guide. Again, trying to answer all of your key questions and discuss pretty much every player ahead of Game Week 1. If you are still watching at this point and you got use from today's video, but you're not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. If you are already subscribed, please drop a like on the video and also check out Fantasy Football Hub. Like I said, there'll be a link down below. Get your free team rating. Let me know what your rating is out of 100. And if you're not yet signed up to the premium version to get access to all of the other stuff, there will be a link down below to get 50% off. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, for my team selection video ahead of Game Week 1. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.